family, welcome back to my channel. Crystal Devon here. So happy to be talking with y'all today. Let me grab my notes, okay, because today I'm going to be answering the question, and this may sound like a silly question, but it's very important that we discuss this, okay? When do you start breastfeeding? Okay, when to start breastfeeding? Immediately, okay? One of the first things you should do when your baby is born is breastfeed. Like, when the baby comes out, skin to skin contact is so important. It's so important. And right along with that skin to skin contact needs to be some breastfeeding, okay? So like, as soon as your baby comes out and you hold your baby, you pull that baby to your chest, you ooh and ah for a minute, and then you start feeding that baby immediately, okay? But let me elaborate and let you guys know why it's so important to do it right away and not wait, okay? Your breast milk comes in 3 different stages, okay? And I did make another video talking about this. I'll put the link to that in the description box below. If you're not familiar with the stages of breast milk, definitely check out that video, okay? But the first stage is very important, and the first stage only lasts for 3 to 5 days. 3 to 5 days. That's not a lot of time for your baby to get this first stage of breast milk that is crucial to their survival and their health, okay? So upon feeding your baby, as soon as they have that skin to skin contact, you know, just breastfeeding them also helps them to just feel relaxed. It helps them to feel safe after their transition into the world. You are the only thing here that your baby is automatically comfortable with, or even used to, or even familiar with. You, because your baby's been inside of you for the past 10 months. So it's important for, you know, the baby's well-being, and it's also important for the baby's health. Remember, this first stage only lasts 3 to 5 days. And the first milk, which is what is often referred to the first stage, the first milk is like your baby's first natural immunization. And for those of you guys who do not know, there is definitely a difference between immunization and vaccines. I know a lot of times Western medicine likes to combine the words and make them appear as one or the same thing, that they serve the same purpose, and that's not entirely true. A vaccine is a vaccine, okay? That's a shot that was created in the laboratory. Immunization is a natural process that our body does on its own. The reason that first milk is like your baby's first natural immunization is because it holds a large quantity of antibodies, and those immune cells are vital. Like, they're very important for your baby to get them. So it's important to feed your baby right away, and to do so for the first few days, definitely, so they can get that first milk, because that window to give your baby those antibodies is kind of short. Now, I'm not saying that after the 3 to 5 days there's no more antibodies in breast milk, because that is not true. It's just different. And in the beginning, that first milk is very crucial, and it houses just a very large amount of antibodies. The thing is, during 3 to 5 days after birth, a lot of women have already given up breastfeeding. By the time it's time for them to go home, they have probably already given their baby formula, and that could not be worse. Here's the thing that we have to be mindful of when breastfeeding, okay? We have to be aware of the type of medical interventions that we are consenting to during labor, because they can cause problems with breastfeeding, okay? Medical interventions and the risk associated with them doesn't have to do with how your labor is progressing, okay? You also have to consider your afterbirth, because it can affect your afterbirth. I love to give this example. There is a such thing as being overly hydrated, okay? When you are attached to an IV, it's constantly pumping saline solution into your body, and that is a tendency for you to be overly hydrated because you don't need to be hooked up to a saline the entire time of your labor. And what if you are a woman who happens to be in labor for 13 plus hours, and all that time you're being pumped with saline solution? What if you've been in labor for 18 to 24 hours? My mother was in labor for 36 hours. Like, that's a long time to have an IV hooked to you and be constantly pumped with saline. So that can lead to something called edema, okay? And when you have edema, that can cause your breasts to be enlarged and very swollen, okay? So fast forward to after you've given birth and your breasts are swollen and enlarged, and maybe you don't even know that you have edema, because nobody's told you, nobody's diagnosed you with this. So you're just thinking that your breasts are swollen. Maybe you don't even notice that your breasts are, maybe you don't even notice that your breasts are even swollen and enlarged because you're coming down off of drugs, and then you're trying to breastfeed. It's going to be painful for you because your breasts are literally swollen and enlarged, and then it's going to be painful for the baby because the baby's not going to be able to latch on properly because your breast is so swollen. So that's something that we have to consider. Something else in labor that you have to consider is the pain medicines that you consent to for pain relief. Yes, an epidural is great for you, but guess who else is high off an epidural? Your baby. And your baby does not have the same type of tolerance as you, a full-grown adult. Okay, so you could come down from the epidural a few hours after you give birth, but your baby, it could probably take your baby up to a week. And I'm not even exaggerating. Like, it takes them longer to come down from a high. So if your baby is high and you're trying to breastfeed, that can affect the baby's ability to latch on properly, which makes it painful for mommy. And after a while, that makes you want to just give up. And especially if you have no idea that all of these factors are behind it, because 9 times out of 10 we don't know. We don't even think about, oh, well, maybe the baby isn't latching on properly because the baby's high off of Pitocin and anesthesia. So we really have to be mindful of the things that we consent to, because to you it may not be worth it. To you it may be worth it to endure the pain just so your baby won't have to be on any type of drugs. Something else to be mindful too in labor when we consent to drugs is that it gets in the baby's immune system. And when the baby is born, their immune system is not fully developed. Let's just put it like that. It's not fully developed. Like, we all have one, but until the baby is about 6 months old, 6, 7, 8 months old, maybe 5, your immune system starts to properly function on their own. If you're breastfeeding your baby immediately and all the way up to then, your baby's going to be getting antibody immune cells from your breast milk into their body. And that's a great benefit, because if your baby gets sick, your baby catches a cold or a fever or something serious, is diagnosed with something, anything could happen, an infection. The baby's body might not be strong enough to fight it on its own, but with you constantly breastfeeding your baby over the course of 6 months, when or if that happens, your baby will have extra protection. So it all kind of flows together, the way the body works and childbirth and just, everything natural has a way of working. So if you're a low risk pregnant woman, my advice to you is to just keep it as natural as you possibly can. And if you feel like you absolutely can't, just be aware of the possibilities of your decisions, the outcome of your results that you have made when you were in labor. Okay? So this video isn't going to be very long because it's not a difficult question to answer. When should you start breastfeeding? Immediately. Why should you do it immediately? To help soothe the baby, for one, help relax them, and just expose them to you, what they are familiar with. And you also want to do it because it's healthy for your baby. You want the baby to get that first milk. It's very, very important to their health and their well-being. And then you also want to be mindful of the things that you do during labor, or to even induce your labor, because those things can lead to complications with breastfeeding. And a lot of times we don't even put those two and two together because we are like, whoo, okay, birth is done. Whatever I went through or endured during birth is done and over with. No, it can still affect you weeks after you've given birth. Most of the women who die given childbirth or because of some pregnancy related issue, it doesn't necessarily happen during childbirth. It could happen a few days or a week or two after they've given birth. So afterbirth is a very crucial time that we probably don't pay enough attention to, but that's a story for another video. I'm gonna go ahead and end this video here. I hope that it was informative for you guys. As always, I hope you learned something. Go ahead and like this video. I forgot to tell you earlier, but if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Hit that bell so you can be notified every time I post a video. And bottom line, breastfeed right away. Be patient with yourself because breastfeeding is not easy, and just try to be mindful and do everything in your power that you can to not make it any harder on yourself than it already is. Okay, I'm out, you guys. Peace and love.